Greetings, everyone. My name is Master Raven Main. I'm from the Kingdom of Belt. This is the making of brass rubbing, the brass of the rubbing. So first, what I started out as a mission for this thing is that I wanted to create walls for my household. So the household that I was doing this for was the Knights of St. Michael. And I decided that I wanted to do something different. The Knights of St. Michael household, when I first got there, it's a very, majority of it's a very period looking camp. So it's a lot of white pavilion, pavilions, everything. And for an artisan, that was like a canvas. So I was trying to figure out how to make it not look like, every other camp walls that I've ever seen. So I decided to do, I thought maybe, thinking of knights, I thought maybe the effigies that I had seen. So I was going to try and make walls with effigies. So we started me on the path of looking at effigies and researching them and all of that. So what I found out is that there were thousands of them, which are effigies are what they would normally put over a casket of somebody. Majority of them obviously knights, but sometimes they did it for kings and queens and everything else. So there were thousands upon thousands of them all over Europe. But as it got over to World War I and World War II, a lot of them were scrapped. A lot of them were taken and melted down for ammunition. Some of them were just vandalized over the years. So there's approximately only about 8,000 left, and majority of them are in England. So they made them between 1,000 and 1650, and most of them are still left. So for brass rubbing, I automatically thought, my first thought was that brass rubbing is just somebody putting a piece of paper over, like a grave marker or an effigy, and then we just put chalk over it, and that was it. That was it. I quickly realized after doing more research that there are actually more involved. So the ones that you normally would assume for a brass rubbing is the ones that anybody can do and usually does. But there are what are official brass rubbings, which are done with different kinds of chalk, sometimes different colors. Sometimes, most of the time, is wax. And it takes weeks, sometimes months, because we're trying to get every small detail and everything else. So it takes a very long time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my PowerPoint and go through my process of what I did. Yes. This is brass rubbing, Master Raven Main. There's my email address. I will share my the handout. So obviously, what is brass effigy? So these are some of those. The one on the right is I don't have a lot of details for a lot of these things, so bear with me, because when I go through, I just find stuff and I grab it and go, oh, that's good, and then I always forget to write down the specifics. But on the right, you can see there's an effigy, and there's right next to a stone one. On the left, obviously, as you can see the brass ones on the left. Here's what creating brass rubbing. So this is like what I was mentioning. So on the left is just simple, looks like a pilgrim badge that someone did, a little piece. But on the right is one that was in great detail that took approximately 2 months to do. And they went over the brass effigy, as you can see on the right, and it just did all of these colors and all the detail of all this. Not all of them are detailed, so it's really hard to get any kind of detail from them. So over the years, they've been damaged or rubbed on. So there's very few that are in pristine condition. So just to sign up with all this stuff, I didn't do any research when it came to how to do what I wanted to do. I just did a lot of testing and experimenting and going, how basically I started off with the first problem that I needed to solve is how to create negative space. So that was my first thought on how to do that. So what I did was I took pieces of fabric and I made little hearts, and I used what I thought would be the best thing is washable glue, because it dries, but then when obviously when it gets wet, it it reconstitutes. So then if I put something on it and the glue comes off, so will the paint. So that was my thought. So I just used different kinds of Elmer's glue to see which one would work best. For the paint, I just used acrylic paint because I have a lot of it. So I thought that would be the best way. And on the right, you can see that what they look like. I just basically did a heart, and then I just painted black over it and let it dry. What I decided to use was Elmer's stick glue with a purple tint. So on the left, you can see what they all came out similar, but it seems the glue stick was better. Plus the purple tint on the glue stick, when I put it down, I could see where I know which I realized was a good decision after when I was doing the experiment, was that I could see where I put the glue stick. So when I knew when I was going to start doing bigger pieces, I needed to know where the glue stick I did and where it wasn't. So I chose the glue stick, which most of the stuff that I do, and this is one of the examples, is that I'm using things that aren't supposed to be used together. So when I use the glue stick on the fabric, a lot of glue comes off. Unlike paperboard, just a thin layer would come off. The fabric just grabbed it. So I went through this whole experiment. I went through hundreds of these little things. These are approximately 3 inches each one, and I would use a lot of them. So I ended up buying a box of 100 just to get through. And each one of the ones that the walls that you're about to see, I used probably about 60 glue sticks per one, if not more. So in my thought on how to do this, I realized I'm not gonna, just for this experiment, but overall what I went with is to get a drop cloth, because overall per square foot, it's inexpensive compared to if I bought fabric and tried to do one of these on there. These are already, when you go get a drop cloth, they've already been tested on their durability. Also, they're already sewn, they're already hemmed. And for this purpose, which I ended up going with ultimately, is I just bought a drop cloth and I did the whole thing. So I bought a drop cloth that was 7 feet by 4 feet. So I just went with that as the wall. I figured that's about roughly the size of a wall. So you can kind of see where what I did is I hung this on my front door, and I got an opaque projector, and I got the line drawing on you see on your left. I put that in the projector, and I just did a line drawing of the night. And then you can kind of see it on the right, really. There is a purple tinge to it, but you can barely see it, where I had to figure out what I did not want paint on. So I didn't put glue on all of the white. I just centered around the night itself. And I had to put the glue stick line either on the inside or the outside. So I usually did it on the inside of the line, and it's usually a debate with a lot of these things, trying to figure out which side to put on. So that was a trial in itself. So as you can see, I put the glue stick down. On the left, you see that I had to figure out a way to do chainmail. So I was going to do little circles, and then realized it was going to take forever. So I basically looked at different drawings of different chainmail through that people had come with how to draw chainmail. So what I decided on doing is doing half circles. So I did, well, C's, basically what they are, over the entire thing. And then in the center there, you can see how the purple came in handy, where I can tell exactly what was where I put the glue stick. Now, again, I didn't put it over the whole background. You can't tell from this picture, but this is what it looks like just before I wash it. It's all black, and like I said, the background, I didn't do the glue stick, just around the knight itself. So when I went and painted it, you could do it. This is what kind of makes it easy, besides getting over the issues of the glue stick itself, is that it's pretty easy overall. Is that you just put the glue stick down, you paint it, and you wash it. The glue comes off, you have negative space. It's pretty easy. So once you get the, like I said, the weirdness of the glue stick, or trying to figure out how to get it down. And I also didn't try anything else. I didn't try any other kinds of materials. I didn't try any kinds of different ways of making a resist. I just found what worked and I went with it, because they're camp walls. So I figured no matter what, they're going to be, you know, going through the weather. So if I didn't treat them tenderly, I did whatever I can to make sure that they're going to last. So this is actually, I made this right side up, but when I was letting it dry, I hung it over the side of a table. And as I was sitting on the couch waiting for it to dry, I noticed this, which was a bonus. This is before I washed it, but this is what it looks like from the back. So when I did these walls, you'll be able to see the drawing from the front and the back, which a lot of the camp walls you can't do. You can only see it from one side. So, and I noticed that I did make mistakes on it, but I realized that if you're doing your brass rubbing, if you've seen any brass rubbings, you notice that, like I mentioned before, there are damage to it. And, you know, a lot of these things I could say, you know, they've been through battles or whatever. So any kind of mistakes, just kind of, it didn't make any difference at all, really, because they're not really supposed to be pristine. But I did find it a good bonus because of the being able to see the design on both sides automatically. But this is what it looks like before I washed it. So you can kind of see where the glue stick was and what it's going to end up ultimately looking like, which is this. Now, this is where I found out that I should let it dry longer, and I did for the rest of them. But it seemed like it was dry, so I washed it. So it kind of gave a dirty tinge to it, which is not bad. Again, it looks like, you know, it's, you know, I've had this, it made an antique, so it looks like it's, you know, it's been around for a long time, longer than obviously it had. This knight is staying on radishes, and I still never found out the reason. It was an inside joke with the rest of the household that long far back. But most of the knights were usually sometimes had things under their head, or they usually were standing on like a dragon or a lion or whatever. So I just, as a point to the household I was at, the radishes. Those who got it in the household laughed. So, but I also did alter the designs of all of these because I didn't want to do obviously the exact effigies. So what I did is I changed a little bit, and the symbol for that the Knights of St. Michael used is a Celtic cross. So I will show you later on in the end of this PowerPoint what I did with that, but I basically tried to somehow incorporate the Celtic cross in there somewhere, so you knew this was a Knight of St. Michael. Also, as you'll see later on when I show you at the end, that I try to make each border a little differently. The effigies were all were very ornate, and I just wanted to make each one of these kind of stand out. And again, I do want to let you know these are 7 feet tall by 4 feet wide. Now, my initial idea for these were these to be horizontal, but when I got to camp, you know, and someone was just setting them up, these were so they're very tall when you kind of walk up on them. And this is what they look like. I put these around the camp. This is how they put them up on the camp, and it looked really kind of cool. In the background, you can kind of tell that's the pavilion. Oh, by the way, all of these I also put in grommets. I put 3 grommets on either side to try and make sure I can get them tight. They're not made to be grommeted. So what I realized soon after I did them is that when I put a hole in them, I would paint around the hole to kind of I probably could have done even glue if I wanted to around the holes before I put the grommet through, because some of them kind of pulled, but not all of them. Again, the pavilion in the back, you can kind of see what another bonus of these is that when I put on the grommets, is that I could hang them on the pavilion. So the rods that stick up from the pavilion poles were able, I could put the grommets over the top. And I don't have a picture of it, but what's really kind of cool is I found out at night when the pavilions are lit up, it looks like there's somebody in the pavilion because it gives like a silhouette. So that was kind of a cool bonus. But the other thing I also did later on after I did the Knights of St. Michael effigies, I also did small walls because I wanted to figure out, we never knew how big our camp was going to be. So I tried to make small walls so that way I could put them around and fill in the space, so that way I had enough walls to go all the way around. And the cost of these weren't that much. The paint was a couple of dollars, and the drop cloth I think cost $20, but I think they can go up to like $40. So the cost of these, like I said, compared to if you're going to buy fabric and paint it, these are probably cheaper. And like I said, these are made to be beaten up as drop cloths, so their seams are made pretty sturdy. This is a night shot. This is one of my friends had his vigil. If you can kind of see, there's also shields, which I love kind of doing puns, so I made a shield wall. So what I did was I made the shield walls are approximately also 7 by 4 feet. And what I did was I made a bunch of them. And what I did was I made more of them, to add around so that you can go around the camp. We never did, because a lot of the camps that we have at war are really close together, so you couldn't see them, so we didn't use all of them. But the shields that I used, as I did a progression through like a timeline, and I found I think 8. I found 8 shields, and each one was if they were put up in progression, it would go from the earliest like 1000 shield to like 1600. So go through the 100, a couple hundred years of each where the shields could be placed in the timeline of when that shield would have been used. So that was going to something I did. And again, I put the Knights in the St. Michael shield on. We had a king at this time that was when this picture was taken, and he's known in the essay officially as Merrick the Jew. So I thought it was kind of cool, if you can kind of see it, that the shadow on the ground kind of makes the Star of David kind of in the bottom. So I always thought that was kind of cool with the whole, that's where he was being elevated, and that's who the king was. So that's what I can say and stuff like that. Now this is just something that I did on the side. I was going to put this on our heraldry pavilion, but I never got to. This is what's called hatching. This is just something I did extra. Like I said, at the end, I was going to give them hatching or thatching, depending on where you're at in the country, was a way of symbolizing colors with patterns. So that way heralds can converse back and forth and use patterns without having to paint every shield to denote, this is who this shield is. They could do it with patterns, and each herald would know. But unfortunately, just like everything else, if you were in Italy, you couldn't probably converse somebody who was in Spain. So, everybody used their own patterns. But this particular one was used in Italy. So I didn't put the smiley face on there because I think that it would look goofy. So I took that off. This is the Poppins badge of Aidenvelt. So obviously you can see the circles, the polka dots represents gold, the lines going that direction. And that pattern is blue, and then obviously no pattern is white. So that's what I kind of did for that. That's 7 foot by 4 foot. And I would think the reason I also did it is because I wanted to start people at least starting another conversation around the Herald's Pavilion of something. What is that? And then they have to explain it, stuff like that. So more of a teaching moment. Here's at the end, I put all of this morning, I put all of the walls because I realized I hadn't put them all on there. The first one on the left of your screen is Joan of Arc. So after I did all the Knights of St. Michael, I was like, there should be a female up here, a woman up here at least, with all the men up here. So that's the one it's the only one I could find that I could do. Woman armor. But as you can see, each one of the Knights of St. Michael I put, except for the one in the just to the right center. He didn't have a shield or anything, and I didn't want to put it on his breastplate like I did with the other one, so I just put it in the corners. But on the left, you can see I put it on the shield, and then the one on the right, I was able to put all on the shoulder plates, breastplate. The Knights of St. Michael. And again, like I said, I try to make each. Well, I try to figure out a way to make each border a little unique to that knight. These are 3 more. Again, in the center, there's no really good place to put it, so I put it around the border and on the shields. Each one of these, which next time I do this class, I'll have it. But each one of these, I also realized after the fact I didn't have the names on them, so I did. As soon as I made them, I realized what I should do is put their names on there. So on the bottom of these, on the back, on the very bottom, I put actually who it is, who the knight is, if I could find it. Again, like I said at the beginning, when I was doing all this stuff, I was like, oh, that's cool, and I grab it, and then I realized I didn't get the name of it. So I tried to go back and correct that. These are the last 2 knight that I could find. The one on the right is actually Knight as St. Michael, which I figured would have been fitting to do at the very least do one for the household. So, and each one has their own quirks, trying to figure out where to put the lines and stuff like that. So, and again, when I did all this process, I had no. I had been in art school, throughout all of my grades, but I don't remember ever. I remember doing something with wax at one point in time, something like this with paint, but I never. I know there's probably a better or an official explanation of what this process is, but when I did it, it was just an experiment to see which one I could do and which one would work out. And for the first year when I put them up, I also realized I also was anxious because I had no idea how these were going to handle it, but they handled, I think, at least three Estrellas, and the war, with the weather and everything else, and the torrential rain. So I did have to figure out that some of them because they put them vertical, not horizontal, they kind of bowed in on some of them, and we were working on fixing that before 2020. So, but other than that, I had to go back and again, like I had to do I had to repaint the holes that I put the grommets through. Sometimes I would paint over the grommet that I did already, just to try and firm up the holes that I put in there. I also put a grommet on the top and then the bottom. So there's 7, 8. There's 8 actually grommet holes all the way through. What was really good that worked out for the crosses that I did, that ended up being 4 foot by 4 foot, roughly 3.5 feet, is that the drop cloth, some of them are made up where there's actually a seam in the middle. So I bought those drop cloths, and what I did is that the seams are actually doubled up. So what that means is the seam was, they sewed it on both sides, and then they sewed that one together. So what I was able to do was I was able to cut it in half, and it was still had seams on both sides. So I didn't have to do any sewing whatsoever. Also the one that had the hatching in the sun, the Papus badge, doing that one was also had another reason. When I actually designed it and decided that I was going to do it, I took it to a couple of my classes when I was teaching this class, and I was able to have hands-on. So I had people in the class be able to take the glue sticks and realized how, the quirks of it, but also how easy it is. So if anybody had any questions, I could try and answer them. You can enter them in the chat section, or you can just unmute. I don't know how fast I did this class. I did it fast. I was trying to make the, I keep doing this. This class is so fast and simple. I've been trying to extend it to make it longer. So I will be working on that.
Looks like somebody's got their hand up. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah.
What kind of paint are you using, and have you ever tried using multiple colors?
No. And I use acrylic paint, just regular black paint that you can get. I paint all the time, every day on fabric. So I had a lot of black paint. The one thing I forgot to mention is that when I was painting, I realized at first I was using a lot of black paint. And I'm like, I'm going to run out of paint. Even though I bought a big jar of it, I'm going to run out. So I add a little water to it. And then as I was doing it, I realized I have to be very careful. So I had to add not too much water, because I realized that as I was painting it, if the paint is too wet, it reconstitutes the glue, which then takes the glue off or spreads the glue out. So I realized when I was doing that, I was like, okay, I have to balance how much water to paint ratio. And I did that again, just so that I wasn't using all of the paint and, just slopping it on there. I try to make it, extend as much as possible. So I haven't tried different colors or anything yet, but I'm going to try and see how that works, or just see how that looks. Because if you remember the first picture I had for the official ones that they do, they did have color in them. So the only thing that it would be is I would have to color it, because there's very few that I can think of. I know there's a handful at least, but that I can think off the top of my head, but not too many of them have color on them, because they're all brass. But I know that there are some out there that someone has put color to, but also I could put color on there, I'm probably sure, but no, I haven't done that yet. And I didn't try different resists or anything else. It was just the glue just made sense, so I kind of just went with it. But I realized too that when I was doing the classes, it's really simple process. The only, like I said, there's a couple quirks when it comes to using the glue sticks. One is that to get the fine lines, what I would do is I would put the glue down, kind of like how you would do like crayons or whatever, where you're doing it at an angle, so that when you're done coloring or rubbing on, you're making a fine point at the end of the glue stick. So that's what I would do for the very thin line. So I would kind of have to go around and use the glue stick on the big thick areas that it didn't really matter how that they were fine point or not, and then try and get it so that the end of the glue stick was at a point. So I'd go back and try and do the smaller lines. But I try to there's always a little bit of the glue stick at the end, at the bottom, and I tried all different things to try and figure out if I could heat it up or melt it, or try and make a new glue stick out of all of the little remnants, and it didn't really work out very well. So but I tried to use every little bit of the glue stick and every one of the little sticks. So I will probably add, when I do this class again, I'll probably add more of the history of the brass rubbings, a little bit more, and probably more of the official on how they actually, more detailed in how they made theirs. The other thing too with these, I let the first one, like I said, I let only dry for a couple hours before I stuck it in the washing machine, and it didn't leave any residual in the washing machine. Everything kind of washed out, all the glue, everything. Just to be safe, I did throw in a couple, regular towels in there that I use in the shop, just in case. But no, nothing ever came off on anything with the washes after that. once I washed it, it all went out. The first one, like I said, I let it dry for a couple hours before I washed it, and that's what gave it that dingy kind of dirty look, which I didn't mind. But the ones after that, I let dry for a day. I just did them and then let them dry an entire day, and then the next day I threw them in the washing machine. And I didn't put it on delicate either. I put it on regular wash cycle because of the fact, like I said, I wanted to make sure that they lasted when I put them up. So I wasn't going to, be really nice to them because I knew they were going to take a lot of beating when I put them up on camp. And it was really neat, which I didn't get it. It didn't really have it wasn't really a way to get a good picture of it. But like I said, when you do these, you can actually see both sides, which the color will be kind of interesting. So that'll be a good experiment when I do a color to see how that transfers. But when you leave camp, you can see all of the walls. They're not high detail, obviously, because of the back. But from the back, you can actually tell where the knights are and what the shapes are and everything else. So it turned out really a such an interesting process that I went through.
So my household has done some floor cloths, which obviously you don't need to do resist or anything. We found success covering them in polyurethane to make them fairly indestructible, but it does make them a lot heavier. What are your thoughts on doing something like that to treat it after it's done?
I think I probably wouldn't for these, only because, like you said, I already had drooping, and that was just from the paint that I put on the drop cloth and the drop cloth itself. So we were trying to figure out a way to put between the poles to make it to keep it taut, or a rope across the top to try and figure out how to keep them from sagging down the middle. So yeah, putting anything on them would probably make them heavier, and I probably wouldn't do that. But with the money that I put into it, I could probably make more of them, and anything else would probably be an extra cost. But yeah, for these I wouldn't do anything else like that. Plus, a lot of the good part of these is that every time they went through a war, I put them, because I know there's a lot of dirt and dust out there. I didn't need to wash them, but I did, and I washed them all every time and folded them up for the following year, and they've held up. The paint is still on there, and if I wanted to, if I had to, which I haven't, because I could probably go back in there and paint a section if something for some reason it came off, but it didn't. Majority of all the paint came on there, and like I mentioned, they're made to be, they're not made to do the things that I have them doing. So they're made to be, trampled on and painted on, and then probably when they, and their usefulness being thrown out. So, and they're made pretty sturdy to last. So the ones that I found. So, but I know there is quite a few people that use canvas, different kinds of canvas or duck cloth or a heavier fabric for floors. I don't know if the one that was done out here that I know that was done, if she coated it. I'm pretty sure she coated it with something. I'm not 100% sure. Oh, the really cool thing about these also that I really felt great about is that at Estrella they have school tours. And I didn't realize till almost the end of the first year that these were out, is that the person that was doing the school tours went by the camp before they went to the collegium. So basically, they showed all the kids. They go, these are brass effigies. This is what they would look like, and they kind of had this little like education thing. So I'm like, that is really cool. So I kind of contributed unintentionally, but really cool intentionally for the school tours. I did have someone curse my name, I guess is the best way for it, for camp, because the first year they were up, my friend put their pavilion. The problem, we didn't see this coming, but basically where we camped was close to the porta potties, and she was a little farther away from, she thought she was far enough away she put pavilion, but between them was the brass effigies. So basically all night long, people were going to the restroom and then seeing the brass effigies and then talking about them right outside of her pavilion. So again, all night long, just like these damn brass effigies. Like people were going to the bathroom or standing there and just talking about it right outside her pavilion all night long. So we realized that maybe you shouldn't put pavilions so close to those brass effigies, especially late at night. So I thought that was funny. But yeah, if you try these, are real simple. You can do it, just on a small piece of fabric and see how it goes. And like I said, I did it on a painter's cloth, but I'm pretty sure you can try it on other things and try different colors and different fabrics and different kinds of paint on there and see how it works. But one thing I haven't done yet, which I probably will hopefully eventually, is my plan was to try and do this with kids, because I figured it's pretty simple. I mean, and it's putting glue stick down and then painting it. I mean, you can't really get too much simpler than that, and then washing it. With young enough kids, it's probably magic. Trying, all of a sudden there's a picture that they painted over the gut.
So if you were gonna do this whole project again, what would you do different?
I don't know. I would. Like I said, I like you mentioned that colors. I think I probably would have tried some color. It never occurred to me to do color when I started doing them. Even after I saw the official ones done, it didn't even occur to me once. But if I could do it again, I probably would try and do some different colored ones. Not sure about the knights, but I probably would have done something. Some maybe floral something, or something that maybe made it look like a garden, maybe a rose garden out front. I'd probably do that, or anything like that. But I realized how many glue sticks I was using, not realizing I was going to go through so many, or that I was going to wear them out. But I also, with other stuff that I paint, I use Sharpie and like I said, a lot of these things that I do on fabric, especially painting on fabric, even though historically they did, in some areas they did paint on clothes in livery. What we use today for modern, that I use on fabric, the fabric just destroys whatever I'm trying to do. So Sharpies, I go through a lot of Sharpies, and a lot of brushes and a lot of different glue sticks for this process, because the fabric just is coarse enough, just enough to ruin anything that you're trying to put on there. So we usually go through a lot of those things. But I think color would be one of the things I would have tried out. I probably would have also liked to have tried off the first, it didn't make sense at the time because I was trying to do something that was inexpensive, but I probably would have liked to have tried, and I'm going to now, is try and use different kinds of fabric and see what the differences are, and see if I can do it, because I do paint clothes, so it'd be interesting to try and see if this process works that well on like a tunic, or maybe a dress, to see if I could do it on a small scale on linen and see how linen tastes, because I paint on linen every day, so, but I haven't tried this process per se on it, so it'd be interesting to find that out. I was kind of disappointed in a way that the regular Emerald glue didn't work out, only because it had a point on it, and you can get gallons of Emerald glue for practically nothing. So I was really hoping that the regular glue and the regular glue bottle would work, and like I showed, it kind of worked. It was okay, but the glue stick just was a lot better. And I have a feeling it probably would have, the glue stick, because it's more of a paste, dried a lot faster, in my opinion, than the rest of the glues that I used to try and see what went out. And I did try and use One of the glues I did have a tint to it that was the liquid. But again, nothing worked better than the glue stick that I tried out. So.
Have you ever done any silk painting?
Yes. Yeah, I haven't done it in a while. But one of the last things, one of the things I did do is that I do have friends in different SCA kind of like groups, but not SCA. And I tried it just to see if it worked. But basically what he did is he was painting his silk banners with acrylic paint and not silk paint, not stain or anything like that. And when I did it on a little pennant, and it doesn't have the flow that you would get on painting the way we do it, painting silk banners, but it was a lot more. The benefit is that sometimes when you have our silk banners and you try and put them up, the only way you get the really good view of them is if there's enough wind blowing, right? But I noticed that with the acrylic one, even with the small pennant, that it's stiff enough that it actually sticks out a bit, so you don't need as much wind and you can still see it. And it seemed to work out pretty well. And they said they put those through in the washer. I haven't done it to mine yet, but they said they do the big, 6-foot ones, and they paint them with acrylic paints, and they put them in the washer and they seal it pretty fine. So it's, so it was kind of neat. But yeah, I don't do as much silk banners or silk painting as I used to. I kind of stuck with trying to do as much as I can with acrylic paints. So, and a lot of the acrylic paints that I use, I also add what's called a paint medium, which is basically what it does is it makes it so whatever you paint on stays a little flexible. So that's what I use to paint on clothes, and I even use it when I paint on banners, because if you don't, it makes it a little more rigid and has a tendency to sometimes chip off. I didn't use medium for the longest time because, and I don't know when they started using paint, when they started selling paint medium for individuals. There is ones for acrylic paints for painting on canvas, so it's those are different kind of mediums. But I was reading books because I was gathering a lot of information about painting on fabric, and the one book that I got from the 70s is that they said that when they were painting for acrylics, they would add water. So for a large part of the time that I painted on fabric, I added just water to acrylics. But then I realized over time that paint medium is much better. So now I add a little bit of paint medium to all my acrylic paints. Even the little jars, I'll use a bunch of the paint and then I'll just put a couple drops in there because it's really good to have a paint medium with the flexibility. The other thing I did learn over time is that acrylic paint goes bad, which I didn't think that was even a thing, but because I bought a lot of the big jars, and I realized that now that I've had them for a couple of years, that they do start clumping on themselves, and they do kind of go bad. I had actually painted the banner, and the paint just, even with the paint medium, chipped off. So I try not to buy the big jars anymore if I'm not going to use them all. But I did for this project. I used all of the black. I used a lot of black paint. I don't know how much paint I used, but I used quite a bit. Share the handout. So my address is on the my email is on the handout. So if you have any questions about it, you can mail the email.